President Donald Trump appointed Sebastian Gorka as his director of counter-terrorism at a time when that role couldn't be more important, with support for terror infiltrating our Western institutions. I sat down with Mr. Gorka a little earlier to talk about the Colorado terror attack and what the Trump administration is planning to do to keep the West safe from terror. He also pushed the Albanese government to increase its defence spending following Pete Hegseth's stern words to Richard Marles. Here's our interview. Sebastian Gorka, it's great to have you back on the show. Thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure is mine. It's been far too long, my friend.
Look, the suspect in the Colorado attack was an illegal immigrant from Egypt. Why was he still in the country? And do you think the United States needs to be more careful about who it allows in?
Leading question, counsel. Why was he here? Because for the last 4 years under the Biden-Harris administration, we had no national sovereignty. Your viewers may find this hard to believe, but under Kamala Harris, the border czar, they basically dismantled our border. If you don't believe what I'm about to say, that's okay. Check it out for yourself. But you could download an app on your mobile phone paid for by the U.S. taxpayer called CBP1. And that stands for Customs and Border Protection. And anyone in the world, no matter who you are, cartel member, terrorist, jihadist, could apply for asylum on this app, get a registration number, and when they crossed illegally into the United States, wave that registration number at the CBP officer and be ushered into the United States. So zero vetting of maybe 21 million illegals allowed into the country in the last 4 years. That's why we have events like Colorado. But here's the good news. We have sealed the border under Secretary Noem. Tom Homan, the border czar, has helped to deport almost 250,000 illegals. Stephen Miller, the Homeland Security advisor, is working night and day with regards to the cartels. And Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, my friends at the FBI, are routing the terrorists led into this country by Biden and by Harris. We've started the work. It isn't over yet. But finally, we are back. America is back in the counterterrorism business.
The left are trying to claim this horrific Colorado attack was not terrorism. What's your response to this?
Well, I'm just glad that we won the election, that the patriots that love this country, 77 million of them, won. I'll give you a little bit of inside baseball. I was when I got the news as senior director of counterterrorism in the White House and the National Security Council, I drove to the White House Sunday night to the Situation Room to get the intelligence briefing on what exactly is happening. As I was driving into the White House compound, I was on my phone to Kash Patel, the director of the FBI, to his deputy, Dan Bongino. And can I just tell you how well, shocking on the one hand, but then what a relief it is to have them in charge. I was being told by our chief law enforcement officers that the local woke authorities were saying, oh, no, this isn't terrorism, too early to say. Kash and Dan had already tweeted that this is jihadi terrorism because we can see the videos on Twitter of this man shouting "Free Palestine," shouting epithets at those elderly Jewish Americans as he tried to burn them alive. So we are talking truth to the global jihadi threat, and the era of sweeping it under the carpet is over, Sharri.
You mentioned he was shouting "Free Palestine." Well, we've now seen a spate of anti-Semitic terror attacks in the United States, Josh Shapiro's home, the murder of the Israeli diplomats in Washington, Colorado, other similar attacks around the world as well. In Australia, we've had synagogues firebombed. So is the Free Palestine cause justifying violence, even murder, and even terror attacks against Jews?
Well, let's be clear what Hamas is. Don't take my word for it. Listen to them. In their founding charter from 1984, in the third paragraph, they state, we are a part of the Ikhwan Muslimin, of the Muslim Brotherhood. What is the Muslim Brotherhood? It is that organization that was created in the 1920s after the first president of Turkey dissolved the last theocratic caliphate. When Mustafa Kemal Ataturk said, no, we are separating mosque and state, we're going to secularize the Muslim world. Within 4 years, the Muslim Brotherhood was born with one mandate and one mission: to recreate the fascistic theocratic regime of Islamism under a new caliphate. From the Muslim Brotherhood all the way through to Al-Qaeda, to ISIS, to Hamas, to Al-Nusra, we have the recrudescence of global jihadism. So it's not a question. Just look at what these people did. I've seen the unedited video from October the 7th of children being killed, young girls at that concert in Israel, hiding in a bathroom, being mowed down by Hamas. Why? Because they're Jewish girls. That's the only reason. So the president has rightly called this out for what it is, as has the vice president. This is a war between civilization, the Judeo-Christian civilization, and barbarity. And we will not stop until the barbarians are defeated.
The Director General of ASIO here in Australia said that anti-Semitism is the greatest threat to life in our country. Would you agree that's the case in America as well? And is there a link between false accusations against Israel and the surge in terrorism that we are seeing?
I wouldn't speak for the services of the people of Australia, but I wouldn't say it's anti-Semitism. It is anti-Semitism. It is anti-Westernism. Why? Because the jihadis, again, don't listen to me, listen to what they preach. They say, first we come after the Saturday people, meaning the Jews, and then we come after the Sunday people, meaning the Christians. So it's exactly as the president said in his most important speech to date, which I consider to be the Warsaw speech he gave in the summer of 2017, which wasn't about anti-Semitism or anti-Christian violence. He lumped it all together and he asked the question of the age. And I'll just quote him from that incredible speech that I recommend all of your viewers go and watch. You can watch it. Warsaw, summer 2017. Near the end of the speech, he said, the only question of the age is whether we in the West have the will to fight and defeat those who are trying to destroy our civilization, whether it's the anti-Semites, whether it's the anti-Christians, the anti-Westerners. They want to kill all of us.
Mr. Gorka, how do you, as the counter-terrorism chief, deal with this increasingly violent movement that's justifying their horrific actions on the basis of anti-Zionism? What will you do about it?
Well, a couple of things. We are on the cusp of releasing, we've drafted the president's new U.S. counterterrorism strategy. In it, you will see the details. The vast portion of it is unclassified. There will be some classified annexes. But when it comes to what I can talk about publicly on Sky News, so number one, we're going to talk truthfully about the threat. We're not going to have the FBI or the intelligence services surveil Catholics in Virginia because they're going to Latin Mass. We're not going to have 72-year-old grandmothers hounded by law enforcement because they took selfies peaceably on January the 6th. So we're going to go back to an apolitical threat assessment of what the actual threats are. Then we're going to take on the priority threats, whether it's Al-Qaeda, whether it's ISIS or others. We're going to continue what we've done for the last 133 days, which is massive decapitation operations. When we came into the White House for a second time on day 8 of the second administration, President Trump said we are returning to the rules of engagement from the first administration, and we are going to kill high-value targets where we see them. Since that time, we have killed over 160 jihadis across the planet, the majority of them HVTs, high-value targets. So we're going to create a decapitation effect in the most dangerous organizations. Then we're going to ask our partners, our closest counterterrorism partners, to step up to the plate. to suppress those threats where they have the capability to do so. And then we're going to take the ideology seriously. This isn't about poor people or stupid people, as the Biden and Obama administrations would have you believe. This is about ideology. It's not about poverty. It's about those who subscribe to the ideology of jihad. And we're going to have very aggressive counter-propaganda campaigns to delegitimize groups like Al-Qaeda and ISIS. And then lastly, something that's very personal to me, because my friends had suffered at the hands of the Biden Department of Justice and the Biden FBI. We are going to rip politics out of the practice of counterterrorism. No more using the massive tools of the U.S. law enforcement and intelligence community, whether it's the Patriot Act, the FISA courts, to go after people because they are patriots or conservatives. No raids at Mar-a-Lago under the cover of national security. We're going to do national security apolitically to keep Americans safe and not to use these powers as a political weapon. That's all I can give you as a sneak peek of what to expect in the weeks and months and years to come.
Well, we look forward to all of that playing out. And I assume along with Al-Qaeda and ISIS, you'd be including Hamas in that list?
Anybody who threatens us, our citizens, our national interests, or our friends and allies. And to quote the president in the viral tweet that he posted after our first counterterrorism operation 11 days into this administration, it is, I don't have the lanyard on me, it is the acronym from our lanyard, WWFY, WWKY. We will find you and we will kill you. That's a promise from the president, the commander-in-chief himself.
Love to hear that. Music to my ears. We're also seeing today the breaking news that Chinese nationals have been charged with smuggling a potential agro-terrorism pathogen into the US. What damage did this have the capability to do?
Well, I'm not going to talk about the current threat assessment with breaking news of this variety, but I'll put it into broader context. And what I'm about to say may shock you, Sharri. When I came into this building 8 years ago, I came here as a counterterrorism guy who'd been doing that for more than 20 years. But as soon as I started reading all the intelligence, the president's daily briefing, I realized we will deal with Al-Qaeda. We will deal with ISIS, as we did when we crushed the caliphate 8 years ago. But the number one strategic threat we face as the West isn't terrorism. We will manage that. I think you in Australia know what the number one threat is, and that is the world's largest communist dictatorship. It is China. You don't even need to have a clearance like I do. You can read the open source materials from Beijing. Go away right now after this show and plug into the internet the phrase unrestricted warfare. Read that book that is now translated for free in English from two senior PLA colonels that give the game plan on how to take down countries like America, like Australia. Understand what the One Belt, One Road initiative really means. Understand that the Beijing authorities have themselves stated that for the 100th anniversary of the Chinese Revolution in 2049, they have one goal and one goal alone: to be the only superpower in the world, with every other nation a satrapy, a tributary nation, or defeated. So why is China doing this? Because they have a game plan, and we have to take it seriously. And the good news is President Trump takes it very seriously. His advisors like Peter Navarro, Scott Bessent, they also take it very, very seriously. Pete Hegseth gets it as well. So does Tulsi Gabbard. So does John Ratcliffe at the CIA. We will deal with the terrorists, but we also must understand the threat that Communist China represents to all decent, civilized, free nations.
It's this threat of Communist China that saw Pete Hegseth tell Australia it needed to lift its investment in defence. We're currently around 2% of GDP. He says it needs to be 3.5%. Can we expect President Trump to reinforce this message when he meets with our Prime Minister Anthony Albanese at the G7? And more generally, where in the region, even the front line of where China is asserting itself, is it particularly important then, in your view, for Australia to lift our investment in defence?
Look, I'm not going to steal the president's thunder. I think what he's said to NATO nations, what he did in the first administration to get those who weren't paying enough into the collective defense alliance that is NATO, and how he got them to do so speaks for itself. But I will say, and I won't go into details, we've only been here for, what, 4 months? And I've had several meetings with our colleagues, our Australian counterterrorism national security colleagues. It has been a delight. And we consider you to be one of our closest Five Eyes partners in national security. But I say to you what I say to every nation. You are measured by how seriously you take the threats to your citizens, to your sovereignty. And if you wish to be understood as friends, as allies, and partners, that requires certain traits and certain behaviors to be met. And committing to your own defense, so we are stronger together, is clearly one of them. So the people of Australia, the government they choose, will decide the exact percentages of GDP. But I think the president will have an opinion when he meets with his Australian counterpart.
Sebastian Gorka, I know how busy you are at the White House. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us once again. Thank you so much.
God bless. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.